Good evening and welcome to the Launchpad's coverage of Starlink 6-79. And it is Christmas on the Space Coast. We're debuting our new overlay and a couple Christmassy themes. So, welcome everyone to this coverage. As always, my name is Magnus. I'm a rocket chaser for the West Coast, wrong coast today, but we'll be providing some live coverage for today's launch. Just about a minute ago, we started the stage two Lux slope, and that will complete at just around 2 minutes. But until then, we have some time to kill. So let's see where everyone's coming from today. All right, I'm starting to see some people from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and North Carolina, and Kentucky. Quite a nice group here for today's launch. We are just around 14 minutes away from that launch. See someone from Greenland. Oh, wow, interesting. Unfortunately, YouTube makes it really hard to see who these people are. So it's only possible to see your handles, which makes it a little bit harder to pronounce everything. But kudos to everyone who's watching tonight. As always, we're going to start the stream off by looking a little bit on that trajectory and those hazards. On your screen right now is a hazard map showing the general direction of today's launch. We are going to have another launch to that 43-degree inclination, and today's drone ship is going to be a short fall of gravitas, which will be located about 600 kilometers downrange, just east of the Bahamas. And continuing looking at that trajectory, you'll see that the flight is going to fly to that 43-degree inclination. It's going to fly basically between Brazil and Africa. It's going to come around, deploy those satellites, perform its deorbit burn, and it will splash down and re-enter over south of South Africa. At this point in time, we are just around T minus 12 minutes and 40 seconds from launch. But before then, it's time to reveal what today's booster is. And today's booster is none other than B1090. It is flying for its ninth time. It's been 43 days since this booster flew its last flight, and it is up again. Some notable flights. It started off flying O3B and Power 7 and 8. It flew SpaceX Crew 10, Bandwagon 3, a couple Starlink missions, and then it had another launch of O3B and Power 910. Through flew the SpaceX CRS-33 mission, and it is back again for yet another Starlink mission. Today's launch is going to be 29 Starlink V2 mini satellites. We're continuing those launches. We've had quite a few of those. We are at 29, which has been the new standard. We've seen a couple different variations of those numbers, but today is going to be 29. Uh, they are flying to uh, they are flying to around a 300-degree orbit where they'll be deployed, and they'll raise their orbit using their electric propulsion system over the next coming days. As for weather for today, it looks like we're expecting some good weather here on the Space Coast. As for winds and precipitation, it is on the calm side. There is not a lot of wind nor precipitation in the area, which is good for a launch. Um, Launch side is clear. It looks like we have weather at just around 95% go for launch. But apart from that, if vehicles go, then this flight is go. We're getting close to that T minus 10-minute mark. If anyone does have any questions regarding this flight or anything else, feel free to drop some of those questions, comments, or concerns in that chat, and we'll be able to respond to that live here tonight. And if I haven't mentioned it, we are expecting a liftoff time just at approximately 2:50, 3:50 a.m. That is in Eastern Standard Time. And if you're located in the Miami area or in the southern tip of Florida, expect to see that launch at just around 20 to 30 seconds after that T0 time. So expect to see that launch at around 2:54 a.m. Eastern Time. Considering the weather today, I do recommend anyone south of the launch site to peek outside if you're there. Take a look, snap some photos, and tag us on Twitter or X at the Launchpad TLPN official, and we'll take a look at some of those photos. But at then, we have passed that T minus 10-minute mark, and we're getting close to that T minus 9-minute mark. Today's launch marks the 568th launch for Falcon 9 in total, the 150th mission of 2025, and it is the 155th mission of SpaceX overall. This also marks the 276th orbital launch attempt this year. We've seen quite a significant increase since last year, and it looks like SpaceX might get close to their goal of 170 launches this year. We have just around 1 month left, and they have 20 launches to catch. Luckily, it doesn't seem like we have any sense of a slowdown on either of the coasts. Space Coast is going full steam ahead, along with the Vandenberg side, which is expecting a launch just around 24 hours from now. All right, we are passing through that T minus 7-minute mark. With that, SpaceX is going to begin that engine chill. The engine chill is process where some liquid oxygen is sent through the Merlins and the plumbing of the first stage, and this is done to prevent gas pockets from forming. Interestingly, the engine chill is probably one of the most important components that happens. It keeps the super chill propellant from boiling when it hits that plumbing, and that boiling would create some gas pockets and bubbles, which would create some unstable flow and could lead to the loss of the engine. As a result, they send a little bit of that liquid oxygen to slowly cool down that metal, so it becomes safe to ignite the engine. At this point in time, we are at 6 minutes to launch. If you are just joining us right now, on your screen right now is a live view of Falcon 9 as it prepares for yet another launch from Slick 40 at
Strong
Cape
back
Canaveral
retract has
Spaceport
started.
Station. At this point in time, the strongback is retracting in preparation for that launch. At this point, you're starting to see those clamps open at the base of the fairings. And just after that, we should see that strongback start to slowly retract. And those clamps are fully opened at this point, and we should start to see that retract in a couple of seconds. We are at T minus 4 minutes to launch. Following that completion of the strongback retract, we should hear the call out that stage 1 LOX load is complete. That should be heard around the 3 minute mark, just around 40 seconds from now. And on your screen, you can start to see that strongback is slowly moving. It is going to move only a couple degrees, and it will fully retract at liftoff.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And with
Stage
that,
1
we have
photo.
confirmation. And with that, we have confirmation of the completion of the stage 1 LOX load. Up next will be the completion of the stage 2 LOX load, which will occur at around the T minus 2 minute mark, just around 40 seconds from now. As you might remember, that stage 2 LOX load began at T minus 16 minutes, which we covered in the beginning of today's stream. We are just around 30 seconds from that callout.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
There's that call out. You could also hear those, what appear to be those pumps starting to slow down. We are just around 2 minutes from launch, so there is quite a bit of things that are going to happen in this minute. We'll start to hear ground gas closeouts, and we'll start to see quite a bit of venting as they purge those systems in preparation for liftoff. Following that, at T minus 1 minute, we will hear Falcon 9 in startup, followed by the go for launch pull. Confirmation by that launch director. With
Ground
that,
gas
we are
closeouts has started.
there's that call out, and you should start to see quite a bit of venting, and you can hear that as well. With that, we're just 1 minute from launch. We're going to hear that call out. Be prepared to look for that ignition at just around 3 seconds. Until then, I'll meet you guys after liftoff.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
The launch director is go for launch.
With that, we have received the final go for launch. We are just around 30 seconds from launch.
T minus 30 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
Vehicles pitching that range.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
And liftoff of Falcon 9 from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying Starlink 6-79 and the 29 Starlink satellites to a low Earth orbit. Liftoff occurred at 2:53:50 Eastern Standard Time. Up next, we'll hear the call out for Falcon 9, a
Power and
supersonic,
telemetry nominal.
where Falcon 9 will break the sound barrier. Following that, we'll have the call out for
Vehicle is
Max Q,
supersonic.
and there's that call out. Waiting that call out for Max Q, just run now.
Max Q.
And there's that call out for maximum aerodynamic pressure. At this point in time, Falcon 9 has already completed most of its mission. There's only about 1 minute left of that Falcon 9's first stage of flight. In just around 1 minute from now, Falcon 9 will.
Stage 2 engine chill.
There's that start of the engine chill, which is again to protect those systems and prevent any gas bubbles from forming in that engine. There's just around 40 seconds away from from launch, and there's quite a bit of events happening in quick succession. At that 2 minute and 24-second mark, you'll see those engines shut off in a staggered position. Following that, you'll have stage separation and second engine startup. So let's await those events.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
And there were all those callouts. Beautiful views of that engine starting and that Florida Space Coast fading from view. As you can see, those grid fins are starting to deploy. Up next, we'll have the payload fairing separation, and the lights will illuminate on those Starlink satellites. We're
Fairing
expecting that around.
separation confirmed.
And there's that call out, and there are those lights. At this point in time, the second stage will continue to fly for just around 5 minutes before it shuts off that engine, and that will continue with that. The first stage will continue. As you can see, it's using its nitrogen cold gas thrusters. We're about to lose that Space Coast out of view, and it's going to use those grid fins once it enters the thicker part of the atmosphere. Until then, the stage 1 is still coasting upward, and it should reach an apogee around 113 kilometers. Following reaching that apogee, it will start its descent, which is powered by gravity, and will reach speeds up to 2 kilometers per second on descent. It will start its entry burn at just around 6 minutes, and that will last around 20 seconds. As you can see in that map, stage 2 continues to lift its altitude as stage 1 continues its descent. There is just about 2 minutes to that entry burn. At this point in time, Falcon 9 is starting its descent. It has reached its apogee, and that vertical speed is going to increase. We'll be seeing that entry burn starting at just around 6 minutes, where 3 Merlin engines will ignite. The center engine will be followed by two other Merlin engines, and they will be lit for just around 20 seconds, slowing that vehicle down and preventing it from breaking up on re entry. Following that, it will coast for just around 1 minute before it starts that landing burn and lands on the drone ship a short fall of gravitas. We are waiting that start of that entry burn just around 40 seconds from now. Sorry, 20 seconds from now.
Stage 1 FTS has saved.
And there's that call. The flight termination system has been saved on the first stage, and that will be followed by the saving of the flight termination on the second stage. Up now, we're expecting that entry burn to begin approximately now.
Stage 1 entry burn.
And there's that call out. You could see a little bit of that T-Teb ignite those engines. It is going to slow itself down while it starts hitting that atmosphere, which will protect it until it hits that thicker part and starts slowing down under atmospheric drag. We'll be carrying that call out for stage 2 FTS being saved in only a couple seconds from now.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
With that, there was that call. That means the stage 2 is following a nominal trajectory, and that goes for both the vehicles. At this point in time, Falcon 9 is traveling just around 1 kilometer per second and is slowing down. Falcon 9 is doing a little bit of a glide using that with the help of those hypersonic grid fins, and we'll soon start to see that drone ship come into view. We are passing through 15 kilometers, and we'll be seeing the start of the landing burn in just around 40 seconds or so.
Stage 1 transonic.
All right, in just a couple seconds from now, the Falcon 9 will be subsonic, which is if this was an RTLS launch, you would hear those sonic booms. We're starting to see that drone ship come into view, that little light there, and we'll see that landing bridge start in just a couple seconds. Falcon 9 will reorient itself, put itself on a trajectory landing on that drone ship, which is going to be a short fall of gravitas.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there's that startup of the landing burn. We can see that drone ship start to come into view. There are live shots from that drone ship as it prepares for its landing.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And another
Stage
touchdown.
1 landing burn.
On your screen is a live view of B-1090 following its ninth landing. Up next, stage 2 will complete its burn in just a couple seconds, and that will mark the end of its first burn. And looks like we can see that on our screens right now. And with that,
MVAC shutdown.
there's that official call out,
Nominal orbit insertion.
and it is in a nominal orbit. With that, stage 2 is going to coast for just around 40 minutes, and it will start a 1 second burn to circularize itself. Following that burn, it is going to coast just a couple minutes, deploy those satellites, perform its T-orbit burn, and it will re-enter just over Africa. We'll get a live view. We'll get a little bit of it. And before we wrap up our broadcast, we'll just take a look at that trajectory for one final time. Stage 2 is going to continue its flight, and eventually it will re-enter safely, and any debris that doesn't burn up in re-entry will splash down in a designated hazard zone. With that, we are going to start to wrap up our live broadcast. Again, we thank y'all for joining us. We appreciate every single one of you. From everyone at TLP, I'd like to thank you all. And with that, be nice to each other because space is better together, and good night.